Hi, happy Friday, everyone. We are so much closer to the launch of our book, You Are Amazing, out on Tuesday. I cannot wait. Pre-order it. We've got an awesome mini course on our website, but I'm just super excited. Sabrina comes tomorrow. We're going to have like a book party here in Chicago, I'm just like absolutely thrilled. But one of the things one of the many tools that we talk about in our book and that I see really often with my clients and just in general when I'm talking to people is like, they're like, so how do I get my head and my heart working in the same direction? How do I know that I'm not being completely crazy? How do I, just this sort of like push and pull that happens. And first of all, we have to start by recognizing that it's okay. That it's okay that if we have these different intuitive promptings, that sometimes that our intellect totally isn't on board. You know, when we look through the paradigm of the intellect, things really work in terms of right and wrong. And when we connect to the world of spirit and when we connect to the world of intuition, everything opens up. It's almost like with the intellect, it's A, B, C, D, and that's just the way that it is. But when we connect and start to trust our intuition is when things are exponential. It's like A connects to Z, connects to B, and makes all these subtle connections that our intellect would never be able to make. So when we get guidance and when we get that intuition or that knowing or just that different part of ourselves that comes in, and first of all, really paying attention to how it feels. Guidance is grounded. It has a grounded vibration to it. It's like a sense of just like of knowing, like I kind of know. And the head has a real constricted sort of energy. And so a lot of times when I see this, we get the guidance and then we're not sure. Should I do that? Am I crazy? Kind of what's going on? So one of the first things that I want you to do, and one of my favorite tools, is even just start by acknowledging what you're getting. And really acknowledging what that is and what those decisions are. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. Let's not make it a big deal. Our culture so values the intellect, learning through just through books, but we have to recognize that that's just one way of picking up information, and we have different ways of tuning in. So, one of the simplest, easiest ways to really start to trust and really start to calm down your brain, who's really just trying to protect you, let's be honest, is to even just start by creating any sort of practice for yourself. Just like when you start to learn to do anything, or when you really start to tune into anything, from riding a bike to any sort of, let's say, a new job, when learning new ways of being in the world, even just start by having a practice. And one of my favorite practices is even just in your car saying, my spirit says, and then saying it out loud. And at first paying attention to how it feels. Paying attention to what your guidance is and really noting where you are guided. Those little no big deal things. Maybe it's that your intuition, excuse the barking dog, wants a parking spot, or it is like just maneuvers you to this parking spot, or that just the tiny synchronicities that happen in life. Write them down. Pay attention to them. Because once we start to pay attention to them, because the intellect is really quick to dismiss. It's really quick to be like, oh, that's nothing, it's whatever, it's no big deal, it's a coincidence. Really start to devote and give your attention to the things that pop up for you. And really anchor them into, really write them down. Just even for 1 week, write down all the little ways that your guidance shows up. And it might just be little knowings, maybe dreams, maybe different things, maybe songs on the radio, whatever resonates. And then after a week, go back and look at the different things that show up. Second of all, another really great way to do it is think about moments in your life where you've already been guided, where you knew, where you already had that aha, where you're like, oh my gosh, I totally, absolutely knew what was going on, how it, and really even there, and even better, if you have a friend or somebody who's also into it, start talking about it, because it's really funny because it has a ripple effect. If you start talking about it, then it's almost like this is the else will be like, I had this guidance and we had this guidance, and it keeps expanding exponentially. And it's almost like having this echo chamber and really giving yourself validation, really validating yourself and validating where you have been guided. You know, you can trust, you can feel those deeper parts of yourself. You know, we have a deep wisdom, and we've been really trained to look outside of ourselves for permission and to look outside of ourselves for validation. And, you know, in learning to trust our guidance and what we get is really a sense, not only that, but is a reclaiming of our authentic self and really stepping into our power. Because, you know, nobody is going to give you permission to live the life that you want to live. Nobody's going to tell you it's okay. Nobody is going to be on board. I mean, it's up to us to really manifest the life that we want. And so for the parts that say, am I crazy? Am I sure? What's going on? If you really feel the energy, a lot of times it isn't even our own voice. That isn't even an actual reflection of who we are. It's kind of other people. It can almost like feel like this other sort of part of ourselves. And so it's almost like having to see that and going a little bit deeper and going, you know, of knowing that that's true. You know, also just in a sense of like, we are naturally designed to be intuitive beings. I mean, we constantly are picking up on things. We do it all the time. It's not difficult. You know, a lot of times we try and make tuning into our intuition like way harder than it is. And it's and really if we think about it, it's paying attention, it's like to the obvious, to what these obvious things are. And if we start to pay attention to them, that allows us to create more trust. And just like any relationship, you know, whether you're in a romantic relationship or your friendship or anything like that, relationships take watering. You need to give attention and commitment and show up. And just like our intuition and just with our own relationships with ourselves and that deeper knowledge is we have to have that same sort of devotion, attention. We need to pay attention to our spirit, and it doesn't require a lot. It doesn't mean that we have to read a million books. It doesn't mean that we have to go find all these different things outside of ourselves, but just of really creating a little bit of space, just even for a few minutes a day to water that relationship. You know, one of my favorite ways, if you're ever on my Instagram, is I'm not a morning person like at all. I move very slowly in the morning. And one of my first things that I do is before I even get out of bed, is I give myself 20 minutes to meditate before I'm even like totally present in the world. And then after that, I like kind of stretch and get back into my body. And I even will just ask myself, what does my spirit say? What is my message for the day for myself? And I'll just give it 1 second, like one word, and just have it pop out of my mouth. And then I don't think about it. I actually write it down in my journal. It's just sort of just like a quick way to kind of get started. And then I get up, and then another beautiful way that I love to start my day is I will pull cards out of my tarot deck. That's something that works for me. That's something that speaks to me. But the thing is we can start to cultivate a relationship with our intuition and our spirit in a million different ways. All we have to do is to give ourselves a little bit of space and get quiet and just be quiet and listen. You can connect to your spirit and to your intuition just by over your morning cup of coffee. Instead of, scrolling through the news or whatever, and just give it a minute and really feel how that feels in your body. Pay attention to how the energy shifts and changes. Really just see the effect. Because, once we start to pay attention, once we really start to notice how these little tiny subtle changes happen, we trust more and more. It's like the intellect gets on board. To become, the thing is our intellect and our egos really are just meant to be, are just really trying to protect us. So that voice that goes, are you sure? Do you know? Are you positive? Is just that part of ourselves that really wants to keep us safe. But we have to remember that we are safe in our bodies, in our physicality. This is a safe place. Being in our bodies connected to our spirits is a safe place. And that doesn't happen out in any other way. And so when we start to really call back and remember that we not only are now have this knowing, but that we can just give it a little bit of attention and pay attention to those subtle changes, what happens is there's a huge ripple effect. Like we all of a sudden you notice all of these different places. And I love you, Ron, exactly. There is safety in spirit, 100%. So often we are so encouraged to disassociate from our bodies, from, and just even like in our culture. We spend so much time in our screens, on the TV or wherever, and on social media, Instagram, all of it, that we get so out of getting into our own internal honing system. And when we do that, we get cut off. So even when we do give our space to get that guidance, and we're like, am I sure? Do I know? But when we start to come back and give it a little bit more room and really get back in, we can really, it just helps to encourage that and build that relationship. Really devote yourself to building a relationship with yourself, with your spirit, with your intuition, and however you want that to look. Like I said, go have it in your morning coffee. Take it when you're just a moment when you're going for a walk. Just take a moment to get present. Just take a moment to really start to check in. How does this feel? What is my spirit, what is my intuition telling me that I'm ignoring? How about that one? A lot of times we think that we're going to get guidance, it's going to be like some sort of mandate, but it's not. God, I've gotten intuitive guidance all the time and ignored it. Like I was talking about when I went to Chile, it took me I got the guidance to go to Chile like over a year ago. And when my head got in the way and my intellect tried to figure it out, my intellect was the one that said, if you're going to go to Chile, like get rid of all your stuff and go backpacking for like 1,000,000 years and, and all of it. And it was like, I got the guidance, but then I wasn't totally, I got my guidance and then my intellect got in my way. And then it was like, and then I didn't trust any of it because it didn't feel, it was almost like I was trying to figure it out. So we can learn to train ourselves, and that can even be by just giving ourselves a little bit more room to breathe. What we really need is just like a little bit more space. And also, in learning to trust ourselves and trust our intuition and trust our guidance and trust our spirit is, that is really making sure too that we are aware and I don't want to say protective because that feels the wrong word, but aware of who we share it with, in the sense of, for example, I've had a few friends who I know who are just like in a very different channel. They just are fifth sensory. That's great. That's the way their life works for them. I love it. I get it. But I'm not going to I'm not going to open myself up for debate or conversation. I'm not going to try and convince them of anything. I'm just going to give myself and them permission to do life however they want to do it. So it's almost like in starting to make sure and feeling like, is really, I keep saying paying attention, but really paying attention, nurturing those relationships, see where you have been guided, give yourself a lot of congratulations and praise. We don't get a lot of that. Quieting the ego isn't always that easy. I flip back before my ego and intuition. Okay, yeah. Quieting the ego isn't that. But it doesn't have to. Okay, first of all, let's just decide that quieting our ego doesn't have to be difficult. And it doesn't mean that we have to silence our ego. It doesn't mean that we have to silence it and make it completely quiet. It just means that we can tune back in. And even in quieting our ego, like I was saying earlier, start noting to where you've been intuitively guided to because what it does is it's food for your intellect to help trust. It's like when you have more it's almost like knowing that you can protect, like that it's protected. Does that make sense? Or even just giving yourself permit, like deciding that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And also not having to totally have to decide what the outcome is. You know, getting into our ego and getting into that constricted space, you know, it's an invitation for us to really give ourselves more compassion. You know, sometimes there's this part of us that I've just like heard with my clients or different things where it's like, I have to be more spiritual, or I'm not doing a good job because I'm doubting my guidance, or I'm feeling ungrounded. And that's just, for me, that's like spiritual abuse. It's okay to have those different things, but you have the choice as to how you react or what you decide to do. You know, and even in that place, it's like I get to decide, and also really paying attention and reminding ourselves that you're not in danger. Like sometimes we feel like we confuse the two. We think that we're going to be in danger, but we're not in danger. Sometimes we're just like uncomfortable. It's just something different that we're being asked. And then what happens is, you know, our mind gets on this like hamster wheel of like just trying to like figure all these different things out. And the funny thing about trying to figure things out is it never happens the way that it happens. Like even if you like tried to like map out your week of exactly how it's going to happen, it doesn't happen that way. So just in even creating a little bit more space and having fun with it. It doesn't have to be life or death. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It just means I'm doing something differently. And, you know, even with our egos, you know, a lot of times those are wounded parts of ourselves. And different messaging where we've been told that we're not okay, but we've been told that we can't trust what we get, that we can't, that there's something wrong with us, or that we don't want to stick. And so where we need to come is to connecting to our spirit and really offering that part of ourselves compassion and really getting underneath it, because that messaging, like those messages are just the top note. When we get underneath it is when we connect to these different parts of our vulnerability. So, you know, so I was just saying, you know, some of the different ways. I mean, really pay attention to where you've been guided. Pay attention to those different things. And a lot of times note those big things that happen, those big ahas. Those, oh my gosh, that was like the elephant, oh my God, walking through the street. You can't not notice it. But really and then, you know, and really cultivating a relationship with your spirit. Show up every single day. Show up over your cup of coffee. It doesn't take a lot. It's not a big deal. It doesn't mean you have to do hours of silent meditation. You can do it on your walk to the bus, of just mindfully taking a moment to connect. You know, and then when that voice comes in and says, are you sure? Do you know? Blah, blah, blah. First of all, how does it feel? If it feels constricted, you're in your ego. You're in your intellect. Intuition is grounded. So, and just even just like taking a breath, you know, just taking a few deep breaths and saying, it's okay. It's just my barking dog. And also moving the energy. You know, sometimes we get on this like thinking wheel, and it's like being on a rotisserie chicken spit. And what did I say? Your ego? Yeah. And exactly like you're saying, Ron, the more we invest, it's like we just get on that mind loop. And in order to get off the merry-go-round, all we have to do is give ourselves like that much space to do something different. We don't have to go all or nothing. We don't have to. It just means of just opening up that energetic space just a little bit so that we can choose to do something different. And another really great tool, here's a great tool that I love. So let's say you've gotten intuitive guidance, then your intellect comes in, your ego or whatever it is, and it's totally throwing you off. And you're really, all of a sudden, you're not sure what is what, and your brain isn't getting quiet, and you're like, I don't know what is what. A really great tool is to just for 10 times, just breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2. And exhale for 4. And do that about 10 times. And really, and while you're doing it, close your eyes, maybe put a hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and just let your mind relax. Just start to relax. And then when you're done, say, my spirit says, and then pop it out. Just burp it up. Don't give yourself a lot of time to think. And see how that feels. You know, for me, what I've seen a lot of times is you get really good guidance. You know, the more chatter there is, that's your head. That's your head. And not trying to banish that part of yourself. We don't need to get rid of the ego. That's not, but we can train our egos to be of service and support our intuition. And, you know, that starts by making a choice and cultivating that connection. And we can do that and really paying attention to how that feels. It doesn't mean that we have to do it in any sort of specific way. Doing things that bring you joy. What are the things that you do that make you feel like you are are lost in time, that really uplift you? Feed those parts of yourself. Make it a priority. And be okay to do something different. And when you get scared, and just give yourself that compassion and be kind to yourself. We really need to be nicer to ourselves, first and foremost, because as we get nicer and more kind to ourselves, we can be nicer and more kind to other people. And when we get caught in ego, it usually means that there's some part of ourselves that needs some attention, and not with harshness. You know, that we can connect and go underneath that and really help heal. Because not only will it help heal us, trust our intuition, but it will help heal the planet. You know, and just be like Sherlock Holmes. Ask yourself, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? And even if you're in my head, my heart, ask yourself even a simple question, is that true? We know. I mean, you know, and don't give yourself a lot of time to think about it. Really, this is a place and a time to really step into your own power, because you have an incredible amount of fabulous, creative, gorgeous power to do magnificent things in the world. And you don't have to figure it out. You just have to follow the headlights on the road. You just have to know what the next step is, and the next step is, and the next step is. And as you keep trusting and following that next step and that next step, you'll become more and more and more confident. It's almost like when you first start a new job and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, I don't know where I am, who is who. But then you're there for a few months and you're like, I got this. I know exactly what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, this isn't difficult at all. I mean, depending on what your job is, but like, you know what I mean. So just of really letting yourself, and if you're new, let yourself be a beginner. Like, we're really not good at being in a beginner culture. So you need to have it figured out, and really don't let yourself operate in right or wrong. Just give yourself a whole lot of space, you know? So those are some of my wonderful tools. I love reading your comments. Thank you, Ron. I really, gosh, and everyone, thank you. I feel like, who is my Jean too, and Tina. Oh my gosh. And I love hearing from you guys, and hope you have a great Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Sabrina's gonna be here tomorrow. I'm so excited to do a video and hang out with her. I'm super pumped. I feel like You Are Amazing is out Tuesday. Pre-order it, order it. We've got our online mini course for free as a thank you gift over on our website. I feel like if you have any questions or comments, or if you want a video on anything, whether it's guidance or anything, please let us know. We'd love to do all of it, and we just love you guys so much. Have a great day. Bye.